Nate Cohn out with a cover article, New York Times, read it in its entirety last night. A hyper-detailed, long analysis 99 days on. Democrats have succeeded in recruiting strong candidates in many of the battlegrounds, which has tended to lessen the advantage of incumbency, even in the districts where Republicans are running for re-election. If there's an upside for the GOP, it's the fight for control will often be fought in Republican-friendly districts where the president won in 2016. It was a superb launch, 100 days on, and that's a good thing to jump into with our Kevin Cirilli, chief of Midterm Countdown for Bloomberg in Washington. Kevin, I read the Nate Cohn article. Greg Villiers out with a note as well. Greg Villiers out with a note as well on the shift here in the House. How much in the way is President Trump for congressional GOP politicians?
Well, for the centrists, I think that it's an issue for them. And I think that you've seen the likes of some Republicans trying to move a bit away from the president on issues like trade, on issues as well as the Mueller investigation. But for the most part, the polling suggests that Republicans are very much approving of the President Trump's administration.
I mean, Kevin, Nate Cohn does touch upon what you touched upon yesterday, which is the turnout by Democrats. When do you get an indication of how Democrats will turn out in the midterms?
Candidly, I think that we've seen indicators already, whether it's in Connor's Land District, whether it's down in Alabama for the special election. Now, look, every political pundit and close political scientist who follows these races will note that these are a bit anomalies in the sense that they should be taken in a vacuum. But on the other side of that, I mean, you have to look at the political organization of the labor unions, of the various different activist groups that have really rallied support, and you do get the sense, at least from those indicators, that there would be, and there's a strong enthusiasm on the left. But, and I say this because, you know, but there's also an enthusiasm on the right who feel that this president has been wronged by various institutions, from the Mueller investigation to the media.
Kevin, talk to me about tax cuts. Are we going to see a tax cut for the wealthy?
Francine, I don't see how there's any type of permanent tax cuts that get done between now and Election Day for the midterms. I think largely here inside the Beltway, the sources that I talk to tell me that this is a messaging bill trying to get Democrats to vote against tax cuts. You know, you look at the numbers from last week's GDP report. Most of that 4.1% growth in the second quarter was fueled by consumer confidence, consumer sentiment, consumer spending. But polls from the politics of this, get away from the policy for a second, suggest that tax plan from last year is still largely unpopular because Democrats have won the framing of it.
All right. What will be the fault lines for if you look at the midterm, right? And we talked a little bit about, of course, the government shutdown. We talk about immigration. We talk about tax cuts. I mean, what will people vote on come the midterm?
Well, I think a couple of things. If you look at how polls suggest the top issues for Americans, it is the economy, it is national security. Yesterday in the Roosevelt Room at the White House, when President Trump made that remarks, you know, I was struck by what he said, quite frankly, about meeting with the Iranian President Rouhani. Those are the types of meetings that I think grab the attention of the country, while also seemingly suggesting that he's looking to work with the European Union on a host of issues, and doubling down yesterday with Italy and the auto market. Trade is something that perhaps a bit wonky ahead of the midterm elections, but definitely Americans will feel the impact of the president's trade policies. Look no further than those agricultural states.